When I stepped into the house I had shared with Jake, it felt like I was entering a stranger space. Everything seemed off. It wasn't just the exhaustion from a night filled with poor choices, where the overwhelming guilt weighed heavily on me. It was something deeper, something irreversible. I couldn't shake the feeling that my life had shifted permanently. The house, once a place of comfort and love, now felt foreign and hollow. The first thing I noticed was a closet. Half of it was empty. The space where Jake's clothes had always been was now glaringly bare. In the bathroom, his toiletries were gone. No toothbrush, no shaving kit, none of the small, everyday items that had always signified his presence. Even the photos of us together, the ones that used to decorate the walls and shelves, were gone. It was as if he had wiped away every trace of himself from the life we had built together. In that moment I knew. He knew. I didn't want to admit it, but the truth was undeniable. Jake wasn't coming back. The realization hit me like a physical blow, and I stood frozen in the doorway, clutching my purse as if it could somehow ground me to the reality I had been trying to ignore. The walls felt like they were closing in, heavy with his absence. Every room seemed louder in its silence, and the air itself felt suffocating. Sitting down to write this feels surreal, almost like I'm confessing to a crime. In many ways, I suppose I am. I don't expect sympathy from anyone reading this. I don't deserve it. What I did wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal. I have no excuses. My therapist suggested I write everything down to confront my actions, to stop hiding from the choices that led me here. So here I am, pouring everything out, trying to understand how I destroyed my life and ruined the future Jake and I were supposed to share. Jake and I have been together for 3 years. 3 really good years, for the most part. We were supposed to get married in a week. The plans were all set. The venue, the flowers, the guest list, everything. It was all coming together so quickly, and somewhere along the way, I lost control of myself. I don't know if it was the pressure of the wedding or my own fear of commitment, but I made the worst decision of my life, a decision I can never take back. Jake wasn't just my partner. He was my anchor, the one who calmed my chaos. I still remember the day we met like it was yesterday. It was St. Patrick's Day, and we were both at a crowded bar with friends. Amid a sea of green, he stood out. He wasn't wearing anything festive, and for some reason, that caught my attention. He walked up to me with a mischievous grin, holding out a tiny bag of weed and said, "Here's your pot of gold, leprechaun." I laughed, and from that moment on, we were inseparable. Jake had a way of making everything seem effortless. He was thoughtful, stable, and had this incredible ability to make me feel seen. For the first time in my life, I felt like someone truly understood me, flaws and all, and still loved me unconditionally. But maybe that was the problem. Deep down, I never felt like I deserved him. Maybe that's why I let my insecurities push me to sabotage the best thing I had ever had. As the wedding day approached, the stress began to overwhelm me. The endless planning, the constant decisions, the family drama, it all felt like too much. I wanted everything to be perfect, but in my pursuit of perfection, I lost sight of what really mattered, Jake. Instead of feeling excited as the big day drew near, I felt trapped. Jake, on the other hand, was his usual calm self. He didn't let the stress affect him and was endlessly patient with me, even when I had meltdowns over something as trivial as flower arrangements or seating charts. He only asked for 2 things: no wild bachelor or bachelorette parties, and that he wanted to wear a traditional suit for the wedding. He wasn't demanding, but even those small requests felt like too much for me in my spiraling state. I bottled everything inside, convincing myself that I needed an escape, a way to release the pressure before the wedding. That's when I made the reckless decision to have a bachelorette party, fully aware Jake wouldn't approve. It was impulsive and thoughtless, but at the time, it seemed like the only way to cope with the mounting stress. The night started innocently enough. My friends and I went to a bar, had a few drinks, and reminisced about old times. But as the night wore on, things spiraled. The drinks kept coming, Shots piled up, and before I knew it, we were at a friend's apartment. That's when the stripper showed up. What was meant to be a joke, a silly way to celebrate, turned into something far beyond my control. I was already too intoxicated to think straight. The details of what followed are hazy, but I remember flirting with the stripper, laughing at his jokes, and feeling a thrill I hadn't experienced in ages. It was as though I had become someone else, reckless and detached from reality. Somehow, I ended up in bed with him. When I woke up the next morning, the weight of what I'd done hit me like a freight train. I had ruined everything. Jake and I had built something special, and now it was gone. Walking into our home, seeing it empty, was confirmation of what I already feared. Jake had found out, and he was gone. I couldn't blame anyone but myself. The betrayal and its aftermath began with a night I barely remembered. It felt surreal, like I was watching someone else live my life, powerless to stop what was unfolding. The next morning, I woke with a pounding headache and a sinking feeling that pressed heavily on my chest. For a moment, I thought Jake was lying next to me, but when I reached out, I realized the horrifying truth. It wasn't him. It was the stripper. Panic flooded me, and I bolted out of bed, hastily grabbing my clothes and running out of the apartment. I moved like I could outrun the consequences of my actions. Denial surged within me as I clung to the hope that it had been a bad dream. But deep down, I knew the truth. I had crossed an unforgivable line. Guilt consumed me as I faced the impossible task of telling Jake what had happened. When I finally arrived home, something felt off. The air was thick with foreboding before I even opened the door. Inside, Jake's things were gone, his clothes, his books, and the photos of us that once decorated the walls. Room after room, I searched for some sign of him, hoping this was all some cruel prank, but the empty spaces confirmed the harsh reality. Jake had left. On the kitchen counter, I found a note with 4 devastating words. Hope it was worth it. The sight of those words blurred as tears filled my eyes. My chest tightened, as though I'd been punched in the stomach. I couldn't believe this was happening. Couldn't believe that Jake, my Jake, was truly gone. I thought about apologizing, explaining everything, begging for forgiveness. But Jake had made his decision clear. I called him repeatedly, but he sent every call straight to voicemail. I sent frantic texts, desperate to explain, but none of them went through. He had blocked me on every platform. His phone, social media, even through mutual friends who remained cold and silent. It was as if Jake had erased me from his life entirely. I collapsed onto the floor, clutching the note as sobs racked my body. The weight of my actions was suffocating. I had destroyed the most important relationship in my life, all for a fleeting, meaningless moment of recklessness. This wasn't the first time I'd acted impulsively, chasing short-lived pleasures, but I never imagined that one decision could cost me everything. The days that followed were a blur of despair. I didn't leave the house, didn't eat, didn't sleep. Friends reached out, concerned for my well-being, but I couldn't face them. I was drowning in shame, unable to admit what I had done. How could I explain that I had cheated on Jake, the man who had been planning a life with me just days before our wedding? The regret was unbearable. My mind replayed the events of that night over and over, each repetition adding to the torment. I wished, with every fiber of my being, that I could go back and undo it all. But reality remained unrelenting, constantly reminding me that the damage was done. Weeks passed, and I tried to navigate the emptiness of the apartment we had once shared. It became a constant reminder of what I had destroyed. I couldn't escape the consequences of my actions. No matter where I went, Jake was gone, and it was all my fault. In a final, desperate attempt to find him, I reached out to Jake's best friend, Tom. I pleaded with him for information, hoping he might tell me where Jake had gone. Maybe, I thought, if I could just talk to him, I could salvage something. But Tom's response was cold and final. Jake doesn't want to talk to you. Leave him alone. That was when the full reality of my situation hit me. Jake wasn't coming back. He had cut me out of his life completely, and there was no way to undo it. The journey to self-reflection began. I eventually turned to therapy, unable to bear the weight of my guilt alone. My therapist, Karen, encouraged me to write about what had happened as a way to process my emotions and understand my actions. At first, the idea of revisiting my mistakes was unbearable. I was terrified of what I might uncover about myself. But over time, Karen helped me realize that my infidelity wasn't an isolated incident. It was part of a deeper, self-destructive pattern I had been following for years. Looking back, I began to see the truth. I had a tendency to sabotage the good things in my life. Whenever something started to go well, I would find a way to ruin it, as if I didn't believe I deserved happiness. Jake had been the best thing that ever happened to me, and instead of cherishing that, I destroyed it. It's been 3 years since Jake left. The guilt still lingers, though it is dulled with time. Forgiving myself has been an uphill battle, one I'm not sure I'll ever fully win. I've stopped trying to reach out to Jake, knowing he has moved on. Wherever he is, I hope he's happy. He deserves that much. As for me, I'm still on a journey of self-discovery and healing. Therapy has helped me confront my flaws and take responsibility for my actions. I've begun to understand the deeper reasons behind my behavior, though the path to change is long and difficult. Each day, I take one small step forward, hoping to become someone better, someone capable of holding on to the good things in life rather than pushing them away.